LGB. 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 LGB.
They say LGB everywhere I go. LGB. What it means, I don't know. LGB. Whatever it is. LGB. Kamala, help me, please. Please.
Alrighty then.
Thank you. LGB.
That's let's go, Brandon, right?
LGB.
This means let's go, Brandon.
No. LGB.
Sounds like let's go, Brandon, I guess.
LGB. All right. Let's go, Brandon.
I am Cornholio.
Chant LGB. Right wing and left wing. LGB. Go, you know the thing. LGB. If you don't sing, that's fact. LGB. And you ain't black. LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
LGB.
Let's go, Brandon.
FJB. Let's go, Brandon.
I'm Joe Biden, and I
Forgot to.
Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Houston, Texas, this January 29th, 2024 at 10:27 a.m. Central Standard Time. I've got three pieces for you today. The first one will be Seth Keshel, Know Your Electoral Map, Maryland, 2024. And then Brian Cates, Neocon Nikki Admits the Awful Truth. And then finally, an original piece from Jason All, one of our own, who produced a piece called Takers. I'm very much looking forward to that one. And of course, all of these pieces, in one way or another, the audio versions are brought to you by Angel Paste. Right now, we have a limited number of rose bottles left. And at this moment, they are 2 bottles to a pack. It's Valentine's Day pack. It's beautiful. Red tissue paper, red rose petals. They're silk rose petals. And then a red bow around them. And 1 unscented and 1 rose scented. And guys, there's nothing in the world like the scent of rose, in my opinion. It is my very favorite scent. I mean, I could literally just put it on my hands just to smell it. This is the best essential oil in the world. Rose actually does have therapeutic effects. You can look it up. One of the things is if you've got sebum dysregulation, that can be ameliorated with rose essential oil, lots of other things. And you just seriously check it out. We've got very few left. I'm going to try to get more because they're selling out so ridiculously quickly. But if you want any from this batch, you need to get it right now. It will sell out today, guaranteed. So you can be the one to grab it. And then if you don't get it, then you'll probably have to wait a couple weeks. So, and then after February, no more rose until February of 2026. So 2025, sorry. Anyway, angelpaste.com, promo code Shapiro to pry $1 from my grasping hands. And if you get the equivalent of 3 or more bottles, you get free shipping. Angel Paste, your skin will drink it up. And now for Seth Keshel. Know Your 2024 Electoral College, Maryland. 10 electoral votes. Topic, elections, by Captain Seth Keshel. Basic election facts. 2024 electoral votes. Population 2020 census 6,177,224. An increase of 403,672 since 2010. Likely population at 2024 election 6.2 million. Partisanship: Governor Party, Democrat. State House Majority, Democrat. State Senate Majority, Democrat. U.S. House Delegation, 7 Democrats, 1 Republican. U.S. Senate Delegation, 2 Democrats. Ethnic demographics: 2020 census. White, 49.8%. Black, 29.8%. Hispanic, 10.6%. Other, 9.8%. Presidential history since 1932. Times Republican, 6. Last, George H.W. Bush, 1988, with a margin of victory of 2.9%. Times Democrat, 17. Last, Joe Biden, 2020, a victory of 33.2%. Presidential election characteristics. Maryland became a member of the Blue Wall in 1992, meaning it has an 8-election Democrat streak ongoing. The state has 10 electoral votes and has had the exact same number of electoral votes in each decade since the 1960s, suggesting a consistent balancing of population growth relative to other states, neither surging in growth nor losing population like most blue states. Democrat margins in the state's two largest counties, Montgomery and Prince George, are crushing, netting a margin for Biden in 2020 of 660,465 alone. The city of Baltimore and Baltimore County, separate from the city, provided another 294,093. Together, Black voters and federal workers of all races make Maryland a Democrat cakewalk in statewide elections. 2020 review. Official, Joe Biden, margin of victory 33.2%, 1,008,609 votes. Keshel, revised likely, Joe Biden plus 28.6, 812,837 votes. Maryland is a 2020 Biden blowout and one in which Trump gained very few net new votes over 2016, 33,245, even losing votes in several counties since his first run. Despite winning 14 of 24, including Baltimore City, county equivalents, the Trump counties provide relatively little margin to the wipeouts in the south of the state piled up by Biden. Frederick County appears to be a Biden flip, thanks to 2020 details. Maryland is one of just 4 states I believe would have moved left anyway from its 2016 margin of Clinton plus 26.4%, but not all the way left to the certified 33.2% margin. My analytical method spots almost 200,000 likely fraudulent ballots statewide, led by Montgomery County with a minimum of 33,569. Notably, Baltimore City had a 2020 presidential election with normal trending, with no 2020 fraud evident at the county level. 2024 preview. Prediction: Joe Biden, margin of victory greater than 30% official, less than 25% clean. Maryland will be a Democrat call as soon as polls close for any Democrat nominee. I do believe the state will inch back to the right a few points, with Prince George's and Montgomery counties likely to weaken for Biden with his share of the black vote. Trump will clear 1 million votes, not a feat for the party, given that George W. Bush was over the mark in 2004, and Biden will most likely eclipse 2 million votes and approach 2.1, even with black vote losses in southern Maryland. Maryland operates automatic voter registration, relies heavily on mail-in balloting, and has a surplus of white federal workers who, thanks to their allegiance to government jobs and growth, fail to offset a loyal black Democrat vote in Baltimore, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County, as they did twice in the 1980s for Republican nominees. Previous installments: Florida, South Carolina, Delaware. Links in the article. Author's note: information is power. This report is free for all to view, and I believe the other Electoral College previews will be as well. If you find this journal useful and informative, please subscribe as a paying member. My travels and mission this year will not be inexpensive, and your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. And finally, this video brought to you in part by Angel Paste, the best lotion the world has ever known. Now in rose scent. Go to angelpaste.com and use promo code Seth to let them know that Seth Keshel sent you. All right, that is me working smart, not hard. That's the latest from Seth Keshel. As you've probably noticed, I do the audio for Seth as well, and he publishes them on his Substack. So go to skeshel.substack.com, subscribe for money, do all the things. This stuff ain't cheap. What he does is not cheap, and it is his sole source of income. So do check that out. All right, next, I'm going to get to my friend Brian Cates in another edition of Work Smart, Not Hard. This audio brought to you in part by Angel Paste, now available in rose essential oil infused versions. Wonderful for oil regulation on your skin. It helps acne, and it smells better than anything you've smelled in your entire life. Go to angelpaste.com and use promo code Cates to let them know that Brian Cates sent you. Oops, I forgot to hit pause on the recording. I've been doing all of my audio crap. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I might need to go in and cut that part out. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching Brian Cates, listening to Brian Cates in another Work Smart, Not Hard segment. All right, everybody. All right, let's go ahead and check out my final piece of the day, entitled Takers by Jason All. Takers. Not your keys, not your coins, explained. Not your keys, not your coins is a popular expression in the world of cryptocurrencies, and a very important one at that. Without owning your keys, you wouldn't really be in control of your coins. Curious as to why? Well, we have the answer for you, and let's dive into it. Public and private keys, explained. Similar to a bank account number, cryptocurrencies are sent to a receiving address. The technical term for this address is the public key. When someone sends you some Bitcoin, they will send it to your public key. It's called public since you can send it to anyone without compromising your crypto. There is, however, another key that is linked to your public key. That would be the private key. This key is absolutely vital. Anyone who has access to the private key can access the funds on the public key that it's linked to. In simpler terms, a private key is similar to a password, a means of identifying you as the true owner. When speaking of not your keys, not your coins, it refers to your private key. Centralized platforms retain custody of your keys and therefore your coins. When logging into your favorite crypto exchange, it might seem like you actually own the coins on your account. After all, you do need to log in to gain access to them, right? Wrong. Not all exchanges work in the same way. Some cryptocurrency platforms, such as centralized exchanges, use custodial wallets. Put simply, custodial wallets allow users to access them but not own them. In fact, the centralized entity governing these platforms have the power to take a cut of any cryptocurrency transaction you make. This is because you don't own the private keys to the crypto assets on your account. The exchange or centralized platform does instead. This phenomenon isn't limited to exchanges. It goes for any wallet provider that doesn't allow you to own the keys to the associated funds if you don't own the private keys. then you are not the true owner of the funds. You'd be entrusting a third party to it. This means that they essentially can do whatever they want with the cryptocurrencies on your account. Have you ever considered applying that crypto principle to all your other financial assets? For example, do you think that you actually own the Federal Reserve notes that you store in a bank? From internationalman.com, 3 ways to survive the Great Taking. It's a scheme of central bankers to subjugate humanity by taking all securities, bank deposits, and property financed with debt. David Webb, a former hedge fund manager and Wall Street insider, has blown the lid off a diabolical plan more than 50 years in the making in a shocking new book. He calls it The Great Taking. I consider it an urgent must read, available for free here. And I will get the link. I'll get the link up. thegreattaking.com. All right. It's available at thegreattaking.com. Here's the synopsis. It is about the taking of collateral, all of it. The end game of the current globally synchronous debt accumulation supercycle. This scheme is being executed by long-planned, intelligent design, the audacity and scope of which is difficult for the mind to encompass. Included are all financial assets and bank deposits, all stocks and bonds, and hence all underlying property of all public corporations, including all inventories, plant and equipment, land, mineral deposits, inventions, and intellectual property. Privately owned personal and real property financed with any amount of debt will likewise be taken, as will the assets of privately owned businesses which have been financed with debt. If even partially successful, this will be the greatest conquest and subjugation in world history. Private, closely held control of all central banks and hence of all money creation has allowed a very few people to control all political parties and governments, the intelligence agencies and their myriad front organizations, the armed forces and the police, the major corporations, and of course the media. These very few people are the prime movers. Their plans are executed over decades. Their control is opaque. To be clear, it is these very few people who are hidden from you, who are behind this scheme to confiscate all assets, who are waging a hybrid war against humanity itself. Webb shows how the dark forces behind central banking have spent the last 50 years meticulously putting the legal structures in place worldwide to sever property rights for securities. Gone are the days of physical paper, share certificates, and bearer securities where you had control and ownership of the asset. Today, your control and ownership have become increasingly distant as stocks, bonds, and other investments have been centralized away from account holders and rehypothecated, a slimy practice where financial institutions reuse an account holder's asset for their own purposes, creating multiple claims on the same asset. Contrary to what most brokerage account holders believe, they only have the appearance of ownership. If their broker goes bust, the stocks and bonds they think they own will be used to satisfy the other, more senior creditors of their broker. Webb shows how, during the 2008 financial crisis, a small broker in Florida went bankrupt. Instead of sending the client's securities to another broker, as had traditionally been the case, they were swept up by the bankruptcy receiver. But it's not just some isolated small broker. The bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers set the case law precedent for secured creditors to take client assets in the case of insolvency. The most senior secured creditors are the most powerful financial institutions closest to the central banks, J.P. Morgan, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, etc. The net effect of the Great Taking will be the biggest centralization of money and power in history, as they take everyone's securities during a future crisis. Though it's not just securities, they will also take any asset financed by debt, like real estate, cars, and small businesses, as people become unable to service their debts. Webb provides all the details and proof in his book. Here's the bottom line. The most powerful people in the world have succeeded in subverting the property rights of securities and ensnaring most of the world with debt. The trap has been set, and the legal plumbing is in place. All that is needed is a big crisis that will cause a tidal wave of bankruptcies, and the hidden forces behind the world's central banks will be able to take everyone's stocks, bonds, and any property financed by debt. All the assets people think they own in brokerage accounts, bank accounts, pensions, and other financial accounts could vanish overnight. Webb says there will be a game of musical chairs when the music stops. You will not have a seat. It is designed to work that way. The coming collapse is by design. Webb makes a compelling case that the next financial crisis won't be an accident. The global elite are making it happen to proceed with the great taking. In short, it's not plausible that such an intelligent, deliberate plan executed with persistence for more than 50 years could happen by accident. Further, the forces behind central banking and fake money creation undoubtedly understand the dynamics of the boom-bust cycle they create by expanding and contracting the money supply. They know the everything bubble they created will lead to a massive bust. That's when they will execute the great taking. Further, consumer debt is at record highs. After many years of being encouraged to go deeply into debt, many Americans have reached their maximum debt saturation. They will be ripe for the picking. As Webb explains, debt is not a real thing. It is an invention, a construct designed to take real things. The bottom line is that debt has, for centuries, had the function of dispossessing or taking away property, capital, and investments from someone. What you can do about it. Nobody knows the future or how the great taking will play out. The best you can do is to make yourself a hard target and not be among the low-hanging fruit. You can do that by being debt-free and owning unencumbered assets within your debt control. You don't want to own something that is simultaneously someone else's liability. That's because the legal structures are already in place to take it from you during the next crisis. Crucially, this includes fiat currency and bank accounts. Remember, fiat currency is the unbacked liability of a bankrupt government. Further, once you deposit currency into a bank, it is no longer yours. Technically and legally, it is the bank's property, and what you own instead is an unsecured liability of the bank. As the great taking unfolds, you won't want to be on the other end of liabilities or IOUs. 3 solutions stand out to me. First, physical gold and silver bullion coins in your possession are an excellent option. The best way is to purchase widely recognized bullion coins like the Canadian maple leaf or the American eagle. Also, never put precious metals in a bank's safe deposit box. They will be among the first targets when the great taking unfolds. Second, real estate, businesses, and other property owned outright with no debt or any other competing claims attached to them. Third, there is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a digital bearer instrument. A bearer instrument gives whoever has it in their possession ownership of it, like the physical paper share certificates and bearer securities of the past. When you properly hold Bitcoin, you own an asset that is not someone else's liability and remains totally under your control.
That text that he wrote was so well footnoted. I mean, everything that he's talking about, there is no speculation whatsoever. It's not, I think this or I think that. It's not that at all. It's all factual. All of these laws are already on the books, and they've been piling up on the books over the years. This has been planned for many, many years. He says 50 years, and I imagine that's probably about right. Going back to the U.S. going off the gold standard. But the laws are on the books where if you have a brokerage account and you've got XYZ stock with your broker, your XYZ stock is lent out. It's lent out in a pool of XYZ stock along with IBM and Apple and whatever. The bottom line is the stocks are used as collateral for the credit system. It's used as collateral for the derivatives. And derivatives, they probably are over $2 quadrillion total now. But understand that the laws are on the books that just as when you go into a bank now and give them money, you are no longer considered a depositor. You are considered by law a lender. When you deposit stock with your broker or a bond with your broker, you become a beneficial owner. And like he says, that sounds good, a beneficial owner. But that doesn't mean that you're the ultimate owner. The ultimate owner, if the broker goes under, the ultimate owner is DTC. And then if DTC goes under, I mean, you as an individual have no legal right. There's no court anywhere on the planet that you can sue because your broker went out of business and you lost your stuff. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen collectively. And I've said all along, I believe when this goes, it'll be a 72-hour event. You know, people are for years, people are thinking, well, I'll be smart enough to get out in time. Well, your only alternative is to have the stock issued in your name and you have a paper certificate. That is your proof of ownership. And I've got to say, I've got to tout my business partner who's now deceased, Jim Sinclair. That's probably the best thing he did for humanity was to create or to coin the phrase GOTS, get out of the system. He back in 2003, 2004, started urging everyone, if you have stocks with your broker that you have no plans on trading or selling, get the certificate. Because if your broker goes under, back then he was thinking if your broker goes under, it'll take 3 to 5 years for you to get access to your funds. Now, with all the laws that are on the books, if your broker goes under, you're out of luck. You got nothing. And how do you think Klaus Schwab is able to say, you will own nothing? There you go. There's your roadmap. And it's legal. They have made it legal right under the noses of everyone. And nobody said boo. David Rogers Webb said boo, explained it, footnoted it, showed all the laws. They're on the books. It's fact. It's not perception. It's not opinion. It's fact.
From brownstone.org, The Great Taking exposes the financial endgame. Quote, we are now living within a hybrid war, conducted almost entirely by deception, and thus designed to achieve war aims with little energy input. It is a war of conquest, directed not against other nation states, but against all of humanity. And is there persuasive evidence in this court of human justice, which should be established if it does not exist? The primary documentary evidence adduced by Webb would be sufficient to incarcerate all of these culprits, if not condemn them to capital punishment, recalling that etymologically, capital or of the head in Latin relates to one's head, which was usually implicated in hanging, and decapitation. It also echoes in wearing a cap. That Webb knows only too well how he has exposed himself and his family with this book, and earlier in addresses where he shared his findings with his audiences in Sweden and the US, is clear, where he writes, against the backdrop of the 2 occasions where he presented his insights, together with evidence. Quote, less than a month after speaking at that conference in the US, a man contacted me who asked to meet in Stockholm. He had been the chairman of a U.S. political party and had a long career related to the Defense Department. He stayed at a hotel within a short walking distance from my apartment. We had lunch. He suggested a pint of ale. He asked me to explain the subject of which I had spoken at the conference. I went through the evidence and implications. The odd thing is that he then asked no questions about the subject. Instead, He fixed me in the eye and said, "Does your family know you are doing this?" He said nothing more. That was the end of the meeting. I paid the bill and left. Perhaps it had been a courtesy call. We all have to die sometime, and being assassinated must be among the most honorable ways to do it. One must have been doing something right, made a difference. No classier way to die, really. I always wanted to be like John Lennon. End quote. One could easily be fooled by Webb's debonair shrugging off of what could, indeed, have been a thinly veiled death threat from his dinner guest, but the fact remains that anyone who has the courage to oppose the psychopaths trying to hijack the world runs a tremendous risk. The more high profile such opposition becomes. This is shown in the recent death, quote, by suicide. Yeah, right. Of Janet Osebard, who made the series The Fall of the Cabal and was involved in the unmasking of a network of pedophiles. The chances that she committed suicide, as reported, are pretty slim, I would say. She was evidently a thorn in the side of the murderous cabal. I had no idea that she was dead. Given the number of reports and other sources which Webb cites, it is impossible to do justice here to all their details and their pertinence for Webb's argument that the so-called elites have spent years to prepare for a supercycle collapse that will necessitate the transition to a new world order with them still in control. I can therefore only lift out the salient parts of his argument. The first is neatly captured where he writes on page 7, quote, "There are now no property rights to securities held in book entry form in any jurisdiction globally. In the grand scheme to confiscate all collateral, dematerialization of securities was the essential first step. The planning and efforts began over half a century ago," end quote. Webb's elaboration on the Great Deflation, chapter 9, is a salutary reminder that this kind of thing has happened before in the 1930s, albeit not on the scale that is being planned this time. In the conclusion, page 64, he drives his point home by confronting readers with the stark reality of what is happening. I feel like quoting the whole of this powerful chapter, but obviously that's redundant because the book can and should be downloaded free via the link provided near the beginning of this article, thegreattaking.com. Please read it. It is imperative to read all the detail that cannot be supplied here. Here is a smattering of citations from it. Quote, "As a human being, should this not concern you? What part of the organized slaughter of vast numbers of innocent people can you find acceptable? Do you believe that you are special in some way, that you were being protected, or that you will be protected now? There has been abundant evidence of great evil at work in the world throughout time and in our present time. Do you really wish to be ignorant of its existence and operation? To not know is bad. To not want to know is worse. Willful ignorance of the existence and operation of evil is a luxury even the wealthy can no longer afford. We are in the grip of the greatest evil humanity has ever faced or refused to acknowledge, as the case may be. Hybrid war is unlimited. It has no bounds. It is global, and it is inside your head. It is never ending. We have witnessed designs and real attempts to exert physical control over every person's body globally, and this is continuing. Why is this happening? I will make a startling assertion. This is not because the power to control is increasing. It is because this power is indeed collapsing. The control system has entered collapse. Their power has been based on deception. Their two great powers of deception, money and media, have been extremely energy-efficient means of control, but these powers are now in rampant collapse. This is why they have moved urgently to institute physical control measures. However, physical control is difficult, dangerous, and energy-intensive, and so they are risking all. They are risking being seen. Is this not a sign of desperation? Never before has a system benefited so few at the great expense of so many. Is this not inherently unstable and unsustainable? Physical control, as opposed to rule by deception, requires enormous energy. Can this be sustained while destroying all economies and abusing all people globally? They do not know how to build back better. Look at their footprint around the world, the destruction, the economic devastation. Let me close with John F. Kennedy's own words. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man. End quote. In turn, I shall conclude with the last paragraph of Webb's prologue. Let us take this to heart, spread the link to his book far and wide, and to quote Naomi Wolf's recent book title, face the beast, bravely and resolutely. Quote, it is my hope that in making this unpleasantness explicit, and doing so at this time, when developments are becoming more apparent, that awareness might spread, and that the worst might be averted. Perhaps this great taking might not be allowed to happen if we each hold up our end, even the investment bankers, and say forcefully, we will not allow this. It is a construct. It is not real. Amen. The full book can be downloaded for free, and links to the video are available at thegreattaking.com. As I have said in the past, the takers are all about taking control.
Mixed up. You're all mixed up. I want to go back to my cell now.
Wait. Okay, wait. Please. What's the playing card for?
Control.
Control of you? By whom?
By you. Takers.
The takers, explain that.
I want to go to my cell now.
Session's not over.
Till you say so?
Right.
The taker.
You're free to go.
Am I? You? You free?
And that is the latest original production from my friend Jason All, just a member of our community, really sounding the alarm. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to go to angelpaste.com, best lotion the world's ever known. Even while I've been recording this, I've seen a few more of those gift boxes go. So if they are still available at angelpaste.com, when this goes live at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central, snap up your the last few boxes. They're gorgeous. One rose, one unscented, and the smell is just, there's nothing like it in the whole world. I can't tell you how much I love it. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, and let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.